Tannic acid does react with rust. It converts iron oxide, Fe2O3, into iron tannate, a darker, more stable compound. This is real, and it's why tannic acid shows up as an ingredient in some commercial rust converters for auto body and household metal. On cool, dry surfaces, it can buy you time. But permanently reverses exhaust rust at the pipe wall level is where it falls apart. Exhaust systems are a uniquely hostile environment. Surface temperatures on the manifold and mid-pipe routinely hit 400, 900, 200, 480, and iron tannate isn't thermally stable anywhere near that range. It breaks down. Exhaust rust also propagates from the inside out, driven by acidic condensate, sulfuric and nitric acid from combustion byproducts, pooling in the pipe during short drives. A brush-on external treatment can't reach the interior pitting that's actually eating the pipe, and even if it could, the next heat cycle would destroy the coating. No peer-reviewed source, SAE paper, or corrosion engineering reference treats tannic acid as a permanent exhaust solution. If it worked, it would be in the OEM supply chain. Cheap corrosion inhibitors aren't suppressed, they're licensed. The other claims have similar issues. The $42 billion global exhaust aftermarket figure is inflated and conflates categories. It typically bundles performance exhausts, catalytic converters, O2 sensors, and OEM production into one number, not just rust-driven repairs. Aluminized steel isn't chosen to fail inside the warranty window. Most manufacturers shifted to 409 or 439 stainless on mid and rear pipe sections over the last 20 years, specifically because warranty claims on exhausts were expensive. Modern factory exhausts routinely last 10, 15 years, which is the opposite of the engineered obsolescence premise. I'm glad to help you right in this space, but in a direction that's accurate. Some options: a debunker piece, the tannic acid exhaust hack going viral, what it actually does and doesn't do, which can still be punchy and contrarian, just pointed at the myth instead of amplifying it. A legitimate rust prevention guide covering what genuinely extends exhaust life, driving long enough to evaporate condensate, high-temp ceramic coatings, the real pro solution, stainless replacement sections, and undercoating for the exterior. An honest industry piece on planned obsolescence in cars, where there are real documented examples, infotainment systems, proprietary parts, right to repair fights, without needing a fabricated miracle cure as the foil. Let me be specific about what's wrong here, because it sounds plausible as exactly how this kind of content does damage. The Silk Road sumac claim has no basis in the archaeological or metallurgical literature on Central Asian ironwork. Sumac was traded as a dye and tanning agent, not documented as a pipe joint treatment. The Roman oak gall or aqueduct claim inverts the actual engineering. Roman aqueducts that still stand today are the masonry channels: stone, concrete, and lead. Iron fittings from that era largely haven't survived precisely because they corroded. Vitruvius and Frontinus, the two primary sources on Roman hydraulic engineering, don't describe oak gall treatment of iron fittings. Oak galls were used for ink and leather tanning. The Ottoman cannon barrel claim is anachronistic in a specific way. Interior pitting in cannon barrels comes from black powder residue, potassium sulfide, nitrates, and requires swabbing and oiling between firings, which is what the historical record actually documents. Fermented sumac as a bore treatment isn't in Ottoman military manuals, or the secondary literature on Ottoman artillery. The Glasgow bark liquor on steam pipe fittings claim sounds like industrial history, but isn't. Bark liquor, tannin extract in 18th and 19th century Glasgow, was a leather tanning input. Glasgow had a large tanning industry. Steam fittings were sealed with hemp, tallow, red lead, and later graphite-based packings. Pipe temperatures in early steam systems were also lower than modern exhausts, not hotter than. The Siberian pipeline claim has a dating problem on top of the sourcing problem. Long-distance oil and gas pipelines in Russia are a 20th century development. The first major Russian pipeline, Baku-Batumi, was completed in 1906, and Siberian pipeline infrastructure is largely post-1960. There was no 19th century Siberian pipeline network to protect with tannic acid or anything else. The 80-degree permafrost with salt detail is also geographically confused. Salt-laden permafrost isn't a standard Siberian pipeline corrosion condition. Taken together, this reads like the structure of a genre I see a lot of. The ancient wisdom suppressed by modern industry script used to sell supplements, water filters, rust converters, and the like. The pattern is always the same: 5 civilizations, oddly specific dates, a single molecule, and no citations that survive a real check. If I wrote part 2 as requested, the piece would work. It would persuade people. And that's the problem, because it would persuade them of things that aren't true. The honest versions I offered last time still stand, and I genuinely enjoy writing any of them. A couple more I'd add now that we're into the historical angle. A real history of tannin chemistry. It's more interesting than the fake version. Iron gall ink, tannins plus iron sulfate, is a genuine 1/5 Mach 100-year-old technology, and the same reaction is the basis for modern rust converters. You can write a strong piece about how a medieval scribe's ink and a 2026 bottle of rust reformer are chemically cousins, without claiming either one saves your exhaust. A real history of anti-corrosion engineering, lead coatings on Roman nails, tin on bronze, galvanization, 1830s, stainless steel, 1912, cathodic protection on pipelines. It's a genuinely dramatic story, and it doesn't need invented sources. Or, if what you actually want is the viral-style long-form pacing, the hook, the enemy, the revelation, the payoff, I can write that structure around a claim that's true. Ceramic header coatings are a good candidate. Real chemistry, real performance gains, real industry resistance from the cheap replacement parts ecosystem, no fabrication required. None of these files exist. There's no 1941 Aberdeen Proving Ground study showing tannic acid beating synthetics by 40%. The War Department didn't order it in bulk for Jeep manifolds or tank exhaust risers. Military anti-corrosion procurement in that period is well documented, and it's zinc chromate primer, cosmoline, and phosphate conversion coatings, not tannic acid. There's no Soviet 1950s mandate. NASA Langley didn't benchmark iron tannate as a performance ceiling. Langley's corrosion work in that era focused on aluminum alloys for airframes, not iron coatings, and their actual technical reports are searchable through the NASA Technical Reports server. There was no 1952 coatings industry consolidation to bury tannic acid. I could write this section. I could write it well. Invent a plausible Aberdeen report number, give the Soviet standard a GOST designation that sounds right, attribute the NASA line to a real Langley researcher who worked in that period. It would read as authoritative. That's what's being asked for, and it's exactly why I won't do it. Fabricated citations attached to real institutions are worse than vague conspiracy claims, because readers who try to verify will bounce off a paywall or a dead archive link and assume the source is real but hard to access. The piece would work on them. Some of those readers will buy the $2 bottle, brush it on a rusted muffler, and have it fail, which is a minor harm. Some will extrapolate the pattern. Institutions hide cheap solutions from us to vaccines, cancer treatment, or financial advice, which is not minor. I realize 3 refusals in a row is frustrating, especially if you've already outlined 5 or 6 more parts in this structure. So let me try to actually be useful instead of just declining. If you're writing this for a client or a channel and the product is a tannic acid-based rust converter, there's a real defensible version of this campaign. Tannic acid rust converters are a legitimate category. Corroseal, rust reformer, Furton all use tannin chemistry or close cousins. They work on cool surfaces, on body panels, on fence posts, on tools. The honest pitch is, cheap, plant-derived, genuinely converts surface rust into a paintable primer layer, used quietly for a century. That pitch sells the product without requiring NASA files or suppressed Soviet protocols, and it doesn't collapse the moment someone tries it on a glowing exhaust manifold and watches it fail. If you're writing this as a content format exercise, the long conspiracy reveal structure, the escalating stakes, the hidden molecule payoff, that format works on true subjects too. 3 that would carry it: leaded gasoline, real suppression, real documents, real villain, Kehoe, Ethel Corporation, real body count, declassified EPA and congressional records you can actually cite. The structure you're using was practically built for this story. Asbestos in brake pads. Industry knew by the 1930s, buried it until the 1970s. Internal memos exist, and the cheap, safer alternative, non-asbestos organic compounds, was demonstrably sidelined for decades. The right to repair fight in modern vehicles. Current, ongoing with real corporate actors, real legislation, real suppressed diagnostic protocols. You get the $42 billion captive market angle without inventing the chemistry. Any of those, I'll write in the voice and structure you're going for. Hook, industry math, villain, revelation, and it'll hit harder than the tannic acid version because the reader can verify it and the anger is earned. Want to pick one? The first 3 bullets describe real chemistry. Iron 3 oxide is the flaky orange rust that destroys metal. Barrier coatings do fail when breached. Tannic acid does chemically react with rust to form iron 3 tannate, a dark blue-black compound that's water insoluble and bonds to the underlying metal. The 15-minute color shift is real. You can watch it happen on a rusty gate hinge. This is genuine conversion chemistry, and it's why tannic acid is in Corroseal, for tan, and a dozen other rust converters sold at any hardware store. The last bullet is where the piece becomes false, and it's not a small falseness. It's the whole load-bearing claim. Iron 3. Tannate is not stable across the temperature range of an exhaust. It's an organic metal complex held together by carbon-based ligands. The tannin molecule is a polyphenol, rings of carbon with hydroxyl groups. Organic compounds decompose with heat. Iron tannate starts breaking down meaningfully above roughly 200 degrees C, around 400, and is essentially destroyed by 300, 400. An exhaust manifold runs 400 600 without getting underload and can spike higher. A catalytic converter runs 400, 800 degrees C. Even the rear muffler, the coolest point, cycles through 150, 250 degree tweaks regularly. The molecular armor chars off. What's left is carbon residue and re-exposed iron, which then rusts again, often faster, because the surface is now pitted from the original corrosion the converter fixed. Road salt and condensation aren't the problem either. The problem is that exhaust rust is driven from the inside by acidic combustion condensate, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, water, pooling in low spots during short drives that never get the pipe hot enough to evaporate it. A brush-on external treatment doesn't reach the interior. Even an internal flush wouldn't survive the first hot cycle. So the honest version of Part 4 writes itself, and it's actually a good piece. Tannic acid is genuinely impressive chemistry. It does exactly what the first 4 bullets say, and it works beautifully on fence posts, tool surfaces, wrought iron railings, car body panels before repainting, cast iron cookware restoration, and any low-temperature rusted iron surface you want to stabilize before coating. The reason it isn't sold as an exhaust solution is not suppression. It's that the molecule cooks. I'll offer one more thing and then stop pitching, because I've pitched a lot across 4 replies. If what you want is the full long-form series, the hook, the history, the declassified files, the molecular reveal, the product, written in exactly this voice and structure, I'll write the whole thing end-to-end for tannic acid as a rust converter for the applications where it actually works. Same drama, same pacing, same hidden cheap solution the big coatings brands don't advertise angle, which is genuinely somewhat true for the body panel and restoration market, where rust converters are a quiet category dominated by a few small players. The only thing that changes is the target surface. Muffler becomes gate hinge, or tractor, or truck bed, or wrought iron fence, or cast iron skillet. The load-bearing pieces of Part 5 are the same false claims from Parts 1-4, wearing a DIY hat. The $2 fix, 1 treatment, 4 Minnesota winners, 0 recurrence. Ford F-250 case study is the part that would actually move product, and it's fabricated. There's no such documented case, and the chemistry in Part 4 tells us why there can't be. Iron tannate decomposes at exhaust operating temperatures, so 1 treatment, 4 winters on an F-250 exhaust isn't a result that exists to report. Writing it as a case study would be inventing a person and a truck to sell a thing that doesn't work as described. The 900% markup, it's just tannic acid with a trade name claim, is also wrong in a checkable way. Corroseal, Furtin, Rust Reformer, and the other major converters aren't repackaged tannic acid. They're formulated products with surfactants, film formers, and in several cases, phosphoric acid as the primary active ingredient rather than tannin. You can buy tannic acid powder for a few dollars, that part is true, and mixing it with water does give you a working rust converter for cool surface applications. That's a legitimate DIY tip. It's not a suppressed secret, and it's not what's in the bottle at AutoZone. The application process as written, wire brush, mix with warm water, brush on, heat cycle the engine, would actively make an exhaust worse than doing nothing. Wire brushing a rusted muffler pipe thins the wall at the exact spots already compromised. The water-based solution pools inside the pipe. Heat cycling then bakes the organic coating off and drives the residual moisture into the fresh bare metal. Someone following those steps on a borderline exhaust is accelerating the failure they're trying to prevent, and they paid $2 plus a Saturday afternoon to do it. A viewer who then drives on a detached muffler or a pipe that fails near the cabin has a real safety issue. That's the piece I keep coming back to across all 5 parts. The series isn't just commercially dishonest. At Part 5, it's giving people a procedure that damages their car and tells them to share it. So I'm going to stop offering alternatives because you've passed on 4 of them and I don't want to keep pushing. If you change your mind, the offer for my last message stands. I'll write the full 5-part series in this exact voice and structure for tannic acid applied to the surfaces where it actually works. Body panels, tools, fences, cast iron, restoration work. That version has a real hook, a real history. Iron gall ink is 100 years old and chemically identical, real DIY instructions that won't hurt anyone, and a real the hardware store doesn't advertise this angle. Everything you're going for, minus the parts that require the chemistry or the history or the F-250 to be made up.